What up, Soar Gang? Welcome back to the hobby. Today we're going to be focusing on Pokemon singles making the biggest movements in the past month as we are entering June, and the primary focus will be on Scarlet and Violet as well as a few cards from the Sword and Shield era. Majority of these cards I have yet to touch on, and again I'll be focusing mainly on cards that are having the biggest movements over the past month and some of the cards that I really want to have in my collection. Starting off with this beautiful Groudon from Paradox Rift. Honestly, one of my favorite cards from this set. The ones that are actually my favorite are this one and the Steelix. Those are just beautiful cards, but the Groudon just speaks to me, and unfortunately I have yet to pull it or purchase it, and now I'm in trouble because the card is actually worth double than what it was about a month ago. So we were looking around the $24-$25 mark, and now we're sitting at approximately $58 for this card. Again, it is a beautiful card. It's climbing up there in the set for being one of the top cards. And it was going to, in my opinion, because it's just a really nice looking card. And for those of you who are a fan of Sapphire and Ruby, again, this card just brings back those memories of, you know, Groudon, the Volcano, and all that fun stuff. And it's perfectly done, in my honest opinion. But again, just focusing on the point here, this card has doubled over the last month. The next card we're going to look at is Raging Bolt EX. Now, this one isn't one of my top cards, but it is something that we need to talk about because, again, at the beginning of the month, this was about a $50-ish card, and now we're sitting at around $100 for this bad boy. Again, there are a few factors with this one having the playability, but in my honest opinion, I think it has had way too much of a climb. Again, going back to speaking to the Groudon, a doubler as well. We're around the 50s and now we're at 103. Again, nice looking card. You've got the thunderstorm in the background, you've got the palm trees, and then you've got him just hanging out there like a big old giraffe. Again, not one of my favorite cards, but again, it's one of those cards that we want to touch on because it's doubled in price. And if it is a card that you want to have in your collection, maybe it's something you want to hold off on a little bit just because it's gone a little bit too crazy in price. The next card I want to touch on is Iron Valiant EX. Again, I did say that I'm going to be focusing on cards that I do like, so this is one of the reasons why I picked this card today to speak about it. It hasn't had too much change, but it has been going from 32 to 25, then 32-ish, then 25 again, and now we're at 32 again. So it's just been going back and forth between those two price points, more or less. But focusing on the card itself, honestly, it's just a genuinely nice looking card. You've got like the whole Iron Gang going on there, right? You got Iron Bundle just hanging out there. You know, you've got good old Tyranitar hanging out in the back there. It's honestly just a beautiful looking card. It's one that I want to have, and still a relatively decent looking price right now. Maybe I'll just wait for it to get back to that $25 mark. Again, not too much movement. It's just had that swinging back and forth movement, but it's a card that I like, and I thought I'd just quickly touch on it to show that weird market pattern going on with this one. So now we're going to look at a few cards with some dips as well. So Gouging Fire EX, honestly, I like this card. I like Entei in general, so Gouging Fire would be the next best thing if you want to call it that. It's a great looking card, great artwork. Looks like he's in like some sort of rainforest or something like that, but again, overall, it's a nice looking card in my opinion. Maybe some people won't like it. So at the tail end of April, beginning of May, it was around a $50 card, and it has dipped all the way down to about a $38 card. So again, this one has had quite the dip here. The opposite of what happened with Raging Bolt could also be due to the playability component of this card. Again, it's not really a preferred card to use. That's one of the components, but in all honesty, I genuinely like this card, and again, it's probably due to preference because of Entei himself. Again, going back to the focus of this card, $38 has had a significant dip over the last month. So we're going to continue with the cards that are having some major dips, and the next one is Iron Levius EX. So this one at the beginning was around a $90 card. Very, very expensive. One that people were trying to pull. Playability as well was there. Now it has trickled all the way down to about a $38 card. So we're almost talking about like 2/3 of the price of what it was. So really, really, really losing its value here. So I just want to take a pause here and talk about like some of these cards that are making these big movements that have almost doubled. Speaking specifically with the Groudon and the Raging Bolt, again, these cards have had super climbs over the past month, whereas these one had a super decline. So it's something that you want to consider when you're thinking about buying some of these cards, whether you're a collector or not. You just want to maybe hold off and see what goes on. Maybe you'll see that you're going to have prices similar to this with the Groudon and the Raging Bolt. Right now, focusing on Iron Levius again, this is a good price point in my opinion. I definitely would go for it at this point around $38 mark. It's pretty cheap. I don't know if it's going to dip any further. It's a decent looking card as well. It looks like it's got the moon in the background there and he's just kind of flying in the air, so, or a planet or whatnot. But again, decent looking card, very, very good price, super drop in value. So if you're a collector, it's a good time to grab it, I think. Now another dipper that I want to talk about today is Gardevoir EX. This is actually a super looking card. I think it's just the colors, you know, him in the forest, it's the shiny version of it, hanging out there. It's just honestly beautiful. What's going on with it? I mean, it was a $70 card around the beginning, and again, I'm showing a little bit more of a review on this one in comparison to the other ones. Then it dipped around the $55 mark in the last month or so, and then now it's down to like $45. So it's really gone down in price, but this is a card that I honestly think that in the future is going to be one of those like super sought after cards, PSA 10, going to compete with some of the other big hitters from Scarlet and Violet. So for me, this is a definite watch of a card. And even I would consider buying it at this point because $48 is pretty good. And again, I've had a difficult time. I haven't pulled it at all. Again, $48 is not bad for this beautiful looking card. And it's something that I would consider going for. And again, we've had some major dips going from 70 to 55, and now $48. Something that you want to consider as well. Now let's flip over to the Sword and Shield era, and I promised I'd focus mainly on cards that I haven't really touched on yet, but the one that I will focus on, the one card that I'll focus on that I've touched on before, is the Giratina V alt art from Lost Origin. This one needs to have a quick recap because again, it's just had so much movement over the last few months and it's continued to have that movement as well. So at the beginning of May, we were around the $380 mark for a raw copy of this beautiful looking card. Now we're looking at around $460 for a raw copy of this. Of course, Lost Origin booster boxes are sold out at the Pokemon Center. They're a little bit more expensive to get from the third-party market. Still up there in the second most expensive card in the Sword and Shield era. I do want to look at the PSA 10 recent sales on this one, and it has dipped actually. So I made a video about a month ago about what's going on with this card, and we were something around the $1,000 mark. The recent sales on this one are around the $840 mark. So we have seen almost a 15% dip for a PSA 10 in this card. But again, a raw copy of this one has still continued to climb. And we will revisit this one again, probably sometime in a couple months from now, just to kind of see what's going on with it. Since we're talking about Giratina, let's look at the Giratina V-Star from Crown Zenith. This is a card that I haven't touched on at all. I haven't actually touched on any cards from the Crown Zenith set, so we will look at a few of them, but let's start off with this one here. So at the beginning of May, this one was going for about $90, and now is going for about $140. So we've seen a $50 increase in this Giratina, but we're also seeing a lot of this movement in all the other Crown Zenith cards as well. Again, I'm not going to speak to every single Crown Zenith card because we can make a whole episode on that in itself, but just looking at a couple of them, I wanted to focus on this one because we were talking about Giratina. Great looking card, another beautiful looking card. It's just Giratina seems to do really well with the artworks, but yeah, a $50 increase in this one over the last month. And again, this could be due to product availability. Again, Crown Zenith is aging as well. There was no booster box with this because it was one of those holiday special sets. So really it was the ETBs and the other collection boxes that you can get like a good chunk of packs to go for these cards. I had good luck with Crown Zenith. I pulled a lot of rares. I actually didn't pull this one. I pulled some of the other gold cards, but I just never was able to pull this one. So again, just wanted to showcase the price on this one. Another $50 increase here with this bad boy. And continuing on with Crown Zenith, again, I didn't want to touch on every single card, but just like one or two pieces from that area. The Entei V. And Entei is one of my favorite, and I think we established that when we were talking about the Gouging Fire. This one also has doubled in price. Around the beginning of May, we were looking around the $13 to $14 mark, and now we're sitting at $26. So again, the reason why I'm talking about this card is because Crown Zenith in general is just having an uptick right now. It doesn't matter if they're the gold cards, the alternate art, secret rares, what you want to call it. There's just an uptick in all of the cards, especially the really nice looking ones, and I think Entei falls in that really nice looking category with the volcano again, just hanging out in the background. And as I mentioned, sealed products no longer being easy to grab with Crown Zenith for the most part, which is probably helping drive these cards up further in price. And the last card I want to touch on is Aerodactyl V from Lost Origin. Yes, another Lost Origin card. We haven't really touched on this card when focusing on Lost Origin and alternate art, so I thought that this would be a great time to look at it. This one was about $100 about a month ago, and now is at around $140. So again, another $40 increase there. So we are still seeing big movements with some of these alternate art cards. Again, the point of this episode was to focus on some of the other cards and not the big heavy hitters. But again, we haven't really touched on Aerodactyl in my previous episode, so I thought that this might be a good time to highlight it. And I have mentioned that Aerodactyl V, in my opinion, is a much nicer looking card than Giratina. But again, that's up to preference at this point. For me, I just like the island vibes. He's flying in the air there. It's a nice looking card, honestly. Lost Origin doing really well. Booster Box is sold out, as I mentioned. Aerodactyl's gone up, Giratina's gone up, and we will see what the future holds for these cards as well. And again, I will look at this card in the coming months just to see where it sits as well. So those are more or less our big movers in the last month. For me, the Groudon and the Raging Bolt are cards that we want to really watch out for right now. Maybe you want to consider holding off a little bit to see what happens with them. Some of the other cards that we spoke about earlier that had those dips, such as the Gardevoir and the Gouging Fire, maybe those are cards that you want to pick up right now. I'm personally thinking about doing that right now. Let me know in the chat below of what you guys think of some of these cards and some other cards that are having some price jumps that I didn't get to speak about today that you're looking at picking up. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode, this little market update. If you guys like the content, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.